Welcome back to the next part of the Rose Cardigan Crochet Along. Today we are getting ready to start our sleeves. Today I'm going to be sharing with you how all three of the sleeves start, and they're all worked directly onto the crochet cardigan, starting in the seam where we joined the side to the back panel. The first of the sleeve options that I'm showing you today is going to be the short version of the round sleeve. It's just a tube that goes round, and you can bring it in if you want to by adding on some optional ribbing. The second sleeve option is just a long version of the same sleeve. Again, it's brought in with some beautiful, like a cuff at the bottom with just a little bit of ribbing to give a more comfortable fit. And the final option is the tapered version of the sleeve. It's going to be the most advanced version of a sleeve, like a traditional fitted cardigan would have. I'm probably going to be opting for a long round sleeve with a cuff, but whichever option you go for, the only option that really needs to have an accurate starting stitch count is the tapered version. So the sleeve options for the tapered version have been calculated using the standard armhole sizes. If you've used a non-standard armhole size, for instance, you've made an extra small, but you've made a 10-inch armhole, then the stitch calculation is going to be ever so slightly different. I'm going to give you the stitch counts for the tapered version, but the two round sleeves aren't as accurate as they need to be for this tapered version. As I said, all three options start with the same first round, and they're all worked in turned joined rounds, which means that you're going to join your rounds with a slip stitch before turning and continuing to work the next round. So if you've ever made any amigurumi or any toys where you work a continuous round, we're not doing that. We're working a joined round and we are turning so that we're going to continue to get the same effect of this ribbing and it matches our cardigan. Crochet sleeves seem to be one of the more terrifying elements of making crochet garments, and it really doesn't need to be. This is why you have this option for a really nice easy sleeve that you can make in the same stitch pattern that we've made our cardigans, or if you want to, you can opt for the tapered version, which does need to be a little bit more accurate, and I'm going to take you through all the different sizes, but that's the last video to be released. Before that, today we are just doing the nice easy version. If you do want to hang on and make the tapered sleeve, I would encourage you, of course, to give it a go. But for now, let's start off all the patterns the same, which is going to be joining our yarn into our seam where we joined our side panels onto our back panels. You do need to make sure that you have the right side of your pattern facing you. So for me, that means I've got my inward facing row facing me across all the way around my pattern, all around my project, should I say, and we're going to be joining in either one of your seams. So we're literally just going to find where we joined. I've got a stitch right next to mine, so I'm going to pop my hook through there. I'm going to untangle my yarn and just place it over my hook with the tail at the back and bring it through. All three sleeve options start with this round, so let's do this one together, and then if you're waiting to go on to do your tapered sleeve, you can do. So we're going to start by making a chain of one just to secure, and we're working one single crochet into the same stitch as our chain one. I do have guideline stitch counts depending on which size you're making. If you have made a less traditional armhole size, like you've got made a bigger armhole or a smaller armhole, depending on which size you've made, then you can kind of go by the measurement of your armhole corresponding to the size. You can find all that information linked on the website for you, which is in the description box below. So if you're making an extra small cardigan and you've made the traditional sized armhole, you're aiming for a stitch count of 56. A small is aiming for 60, medium would be 64, a large would be 68 stitches, an extra large that like I'm making will be 76 stitches, a 2x and a 3x will be making 64 stitches, and a 4 and a 5XL will be aiming for 92. Now this is where people get a little bit concerned, and all this means is that we're going to single crochet all the way around evenly across the ends of our rows. So if I tilt mine up and you can see the ends of the rows, I'm aiming to work 76 stitches all the way around, and that sounds like I've got plenty of rounds to plenty of places to put those stitches. So The way that I tend to calculate it for myself when I was learning to crochet, this was the best way I found to evenly distribute my stitches when I was giving a stitch count like this, was to count the number of rows that I have available and then divide that number by the number of stitches I need to make. So for instance, I have 47 rows. I've already counted them and I need to make 76 stitches. So if I divide 76 by 47, I get around 1.5, which obviously we can't do a half stitch. So over 2 rows, I'm going to be working 3 stitches roughly, give or take. The important thing is if you can still see where your seam was, I can because I haven't quite closed that properly. What I need to do is to make sure I'm halfway through my stitch count that I need in total by the time I get halfway up my armhole. So I need to work 38 stitches by the time I reach where I seamed my shoulder, and then I need to work another 38 stitches back down to the end of this round. If you're making just the long or the short round sleeve, that will be good enough. You don't need to be too accurate. If you are going to go on to make the tapered sleeve, you will need to try and achieve the accurate stitch count. Now, you're not going to get this right first time. I doubt I will get it right first time, but we just need to aim for that elusive number as best we can, working across the rows that we have available. What we don't want is to do too few stitches and for our sleeve or our shoulder to pull in around our arm. We also don't want it to be too many stitches so that we have an expansion around our shoulder, because that's not going to look the best of our finish. So you've got those rough estimates as to number of stitches we need to be doing. Now we simply need to work them into the ends of our rows. So I've said that I'm going to be aiming for about 3 stitches across 2 rows. And this is quite easily done with the first few rows for me, because I can see that I've got a stitch, and I could probably squish another one in there, squish one in there, 2, 3. So by those first few rows, I've got my first 6 stitches. So it's not an exact science, because sometimes crochet isn't. There does need to be a bit of fiddling around when we're being asked to crochet evenly, and it's just making sure that you work the number of stitches that you need for your size, or work with what you have. So if you have done a larger armhole, you're probably going to need to work more stitches than you would for the rest of your cardigan size. Ideally, what you're looking to achieve is just getting a flat edge, nothing that's crimping in, nothing that's expanding out. I've already worked that first stitch there, so I'm going to add 1 single crochet into the next. So that's 2. And I'm going to count as I go around roughly. So there's 3, number 4, and 5. I'm working over my end at the same time to try and get that hidden as well. So I've got 2 rows here, so I can do 1, maybe put 1 in between there, 2, and I can put 1 in there for my 3rd one. And you can see that that's not causing the crochet fabric to expand, it's not pulling it in too much. And I'm going to aim to work 76 stitches all the way around my armhole, because I'm making an extra large and I've made a 9-inch armhole. So continue to work around, achieving that stitch count you need for your size. Just as a reminder, an extra small will be a stitch count of 56. A small will be 60, medium was 64, large was 68, extra large was 76, 2 and 3x were 84, and a 4 and a 5x were 92. So continue to work around and just make sure that your crochet is looking nice and neat. It's not bunching up. Just work around, placing your single crochets evenly, and I'll see you in the next video to get ready to make your sleeves, either the round version or the tapered, which will be released 1 day later.